Have you ever wondered why, despite everything you give, you have the feeling that nothing ever comes back to you? What you are about to discover here has the power to deeply change the way the world perceives you. Good person ignored. It is one of the most painful paradoxes of human existence. The more generous you are, the more people seem to take you for granted. The more you forgive, the more your patience is abused. These words attributed to Machiavelli were not written to hurt, but to awaken. The more you erase yourself, the less you exist in the eyes of others. What if everything you were taught about kindness was in reality nothing more than a beautifully wrapped trap, a mask you have worn for so long that you have forgotten the face it hides? Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few feel what you truly are. To awaken a conscience that you may have smothered your entire life in a desperate attempt to be accepted, understood, loved. But here is a reality that few dare to state clearly. What if all of this was nothing more than a beautiful story told to keep you docile, predictable, manipulable? Since childhood, you have been told that good people triumph, that kindness is an invincible force. The truth is that you are tired. And this is not ordinary tiredness. It is a silent and deep exhaustion, the exhaustion of someone who constantly erases themselves to please others. You swallow your anger to preserve the peace. You put on smiles so as not to disappoint. You make yourself small, hoping that the world will recognize your humility. And all of this with a lump in your throat, because deep down you know it does not work. You feel that something is wrong, and that is true. In this reflection, we are going to confront without filter the romanticized idea of being a good person. Not to glorify coldness or cruelty, but so that you finally understand that living with the sole purpose of pleasing others is the fastest path to losing respect, including your own self-respect. This reflection is for you, who have already been told that you were too kind, as if it were a compliment, but in whose tone you sensed a form of belittlement. For you who are exhausted from giving without receiving, who have forgiven too much, stayed silent too long, and who have nonetheless been pushed aside as if you did not matter. You were not born trying to please. This thirst for approval, this urgency to be perceived as kind and understanding, was taught to you from a very young age. When you were told be good, do not do that. What was truly being planted in you was fear. The fear of being rejected, the fear of being perceived as bad, the fear of being punished simply for being human, with anger, desires, and opinions of your own. And you learned to adapt, to smile when you wanted to scream, to swallow your tears, to apologize even when you were not at fault. And the most tragic part, you called that a virtue. But here is the raw truth. It was never kindness. It was survival, a sophisticated form of fear, a defense mechanism disguised as gentleness. And the more you repeated this pattern, the further you drifted from yourself. Suddenly, your life no longer belonged to you. It had become a theater stage on which you performed so as not to disturb others, a stage where your pain remained hidden in the wings. How many times did you say yes when you wanted to say no? How many times did you stay silent so as not to appear rude? How many times was your patience praised, when in reality people were simply thanking you for not imposing yourself? This cycle is exhausting because it satisfies no one. You can give everything, be the most fair, the most available person, and still you will be ignored, used, replaced. Because the truth is that the world does not respect those who set no limits. As Machiavelli points out, a man who seeks to act in all circumstances as a good man is bound to ruin among so many others who are not. This sentence is a punch, but a necessary punch. Because while you live trying to maintain the image of the good person, others make the decisions, take the positions, impose their will. Machiavelli was not a defender of wickedness. He was simply a disturbing observer, because he said what no one wanted to hear. While many wrote about the world as it should be, Machiavelli had the audacity to write about the world as it actually is. He showed that behind the facade of civilization, what truly governs the world is self-interest, fear, and power. And whether we like it or not, it is this that determines who will be respected and who will be ignored. He claimed it is far safer to be feared than loved if one must choose between the two. This sentence, so often misunderstood, is not an apology for terror, but a lucid observation about human behavior. Machiavelli understood that respect does not arise from kindness alone, but from the perception of consequences. People only take you seriously when they know that crossing your limits will have a price. You can be fair, generous, have the purest heart, but if you are not perceived as someone who commands respect, you will be treated as replaceable. Because the world does not see your intention, it reacts to your presence. And presence is not a matter of volume. Presence is clarity, it is firmness, it is the emotional authority you project. Machiavelli used a formidable metaphor that every person should contemplate. Every individual who wants to live with dignity must be both lion and fox. The lion to inspire respect and discourage attacks from opportunists. The fox to recognize traps and escape manipulation. If you are only a lion, you will be brutal, predictable, easy to deceive. If you are only a fox, you will be cunning, but you will not inspire respect. But when you are both, shrewd enough to perceive manipulation and strong enough that people think twice before underestimating you, you become the sovereign of your own life. You do not need to abandon your values. You simply need to stop using them as chains. Being truly good requires wisdom. It demands strategy. It requires knowing when to step back and when to confront with firmness. It demands that you stop apologizing for existing and start claiming the space that is rightfully yours. Saying no is an art, and like all true art, it demands authentic courage. The courage to endure the looks of disapproval from those who profited from your submission. You grew up believing that refusing something was synonymous with selfishness, that setting limits meant being insensitive, that disagreeing meant lacking love. And so over the years, you became someone who says yes while bleeding on the inside. But here is a truth that perhaps no one has ever told you this directly. Every yes you give against your will is a no you are saying to yourself. And there is nothing noble about that. It is self-abandonment. The world does not respect those who bend to everything. It respects those who stand their ground, those who have limits, those who, though benevolent, know how to be inflexible when necessary. The idea that you must choose between being good or being respected is a dangerous lie. You do not need to be cruel to be firm in your decisions. You do not need to be cold to protect yourself effectively. The secret lies in deep authenticity. It is about leaving behind the role of the martyr to take on that of an emotionally responsible adult. It is about understanding that your passivity is not love. It is disguised fear. Fear of being rejected, of disappointing, of being perceived as difficult by others. So you give in again and again, even when you truly cannot take any more. Until your voice gets lost in silence, until your soul begins to beg for respect. And when you finally begin to stand your ground, you know what inevitably happens. Those who always profited from your submission start saying you have changed, that you are selfish. But that is not a problem. It is a reliable thermometer of your evolution. When those who had grown accustomed to your weakness begin to be disturbed by your strength, that is the sign you are on the right path. Saying no with firmness but without anger is a real and profound act of power. A calm, direct no, without excessive justifications, is worth more than 1,000 explanations, because it communicates something that words alone cannot transmit. You respect yourself, and the one who respects themselves is naturally respected in return. There comes a moment in life when the soul cries out, a silent breaking point, almost imperceptible but devastating. The moment when one realizes they have spent years being the version others expected, not who they truly are. The role of the nice person that seems so safe begins to weigh like an armor that imprisons rather than protects. You stayed silent when you wanted to speak. You forgave the unforgivable to preserve a peace that was never yours. You accepted crumbs and called it maturity. But inside you, an abyss was growing every day. The emptiness of someone who gives everything without receiving respect. And it is here that true inner freedom is born. Because freedom is not doing whatever you want. Freedom is no longer being a slave to the need to please people who do not give back what you offer them. It is being able to look in the mirror and finally recognize who is there, without a mask, without a character. Being free means saying what you think with respect, but without fear. It means setting limits, without having to justify or apologize. It means being able to feel anger, without feeling guilty for being human. It means knowing you can be kind without being passive, that you can love without erasing yourself. Machiavelli knew that the strength of an individual lies in their ability to choose when to be gentle and when to be relentless. A man must learn not to always be good, because being always good in a world that is not means walking defenseless among wolves. But it is not about becoming the brutal opposite of what you were. Many, upon waking from this exhausting role, fall into the opposite extreme, becoming cold, hard, distant. But that is not strength. It is trauma disguised as freedom. True strength lies in balance, being whole and fully oneself. No longer living in fear of being misunderstood, but in the courage to be authentic. Freedom begins when you stop asking permission to exist in your own life. When you understand that you no longer need to reshape yourself to fit into the world of others. The world respects those who begin by respecting themselves. That is the great lesson this reflection wanted to pass on to you. You do not need to be cruel to live with dignity, but you no longer need to be anyone's emotional doormat. It is time to be more than a pleasant appearance for others. It is time to be a presence that commands respect, that sets limits, and that embodies the truth of who you are. If this reflection has touched you, if it has awakened you from an illusion, if it has given you words for feelings you did not know how to name, then it has accomplished its mission. Your freedom has just begun.